To be honest with you, I don't even know if this guy is for real or he's just trolling. But either way it goes, Ben, I've got a lot of respect for you when it comes to wrestling, when it comes for you in MMA. You're a hell of a fighter. Scratch that. You're a hell of a wrestler. But come on, bro. Really? Really? Boxers can't box good? Like, you got to understand, this is what UFC people get hung up on. And I say UFC people because the majority of MMA fans are UFC fans. So I bunch them up with UFC as that is the cream of the crop, the best of the best, supposedly, in the MMA world. Here's the issue. Okay? Polly had not boxed for 2 years, a little over 2 years. His last boxing match that he had a little over 2 years ago, he got knocked out to a journeyman, to a guy who wasn't even good, a C-level opponent. I believe his name was Sam Agenton, if I remember correctly, who is garbage, and he lost to him. Then on top of that, when you look at the bare knuckle match, I'm sorry. People can argue with me all day, but Polly won the first 3 rounds with one hand. Artem was the aggressor. I had a discussion with somebody in my comment section about this. Being the aggressor doesn't mean shit if you can't land punches. If you're just running into punches all day and winging punches and missing everything you throw, then what good is being an aggressor? No, I'm sorry. The only time that being the aggressor wins you a round is if it is a very close round, meaning that if me and you land damn near the same amount of punches, what separates us? It's kind of like going to a job interview. You got the same degree as somebody. Now they're looking at who has a higher GPA. See what I'm saying? It's that extra credit. That's when being the aggressor comes into play. But when you're an aggressor and you're doing foolish, stupid aggression, getting your ass beat, there's no point of being the aggressor counting towards you because you're losing the fight. Now, once again, Polly had one hand. According to Polly, he broke his hand. I'll wait for the medical records to come out because I don't want to see a me shoulder. Then Polly goes swimming in the ocean and his hand's fixed. So I won't say his hand was broken, but he definitely didn't throw the right hand at all. But if you actually watch the fight, Polly should have won the first 3 rounds. I kind of have figured watching the event, if it was to go to the scorecards, Polly would lose because every fighter that they have in the bare knuckle fighting championship, or whatever it's called, they're all ex-UFC fighters. They're all ex-MMA fighters. So, of course, they're going to score for the MMA guy if the boxer doesn't win by knockout. So, you could take for what you want. But let's just compare boxing and MMA. We've only had this a handful of times. We had it when James Toney fought Randy Couture. It didn't turn out good for James Toney. But, once again, James Toney was out of his prime. He was old. He hadn't fought any top tier opponents for a long time. He was supposed to come in at 205. Didn't even make weight, so they had to make it heavyweight because he came in at 230, which shows he didn't even train for the fight. He got scooped by a single leg takedown, and the fight was over. So MMA's got that, if you want to give them that. But what they leave out is when Ray Mercer knocked out Tim Sylvia in one punch. And Tim Sylvia at the time was just coming off of being the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. They like to leave that out. Now, if you want to come to another boxing one, you've got Holly Holmes. What did Holly Holmes do? She ran through the UFC. She took out Ronda Rousey, who they were saying could beat Floyd Mayweather in a fight if that wasn't ridiculous enough. She got beat by a boxer. And Holly Holmes wasn't even the cream of the crop in her division. She wasn't the best. But she ran through MMA. Now you've got Polly versus Artem. Okay? Polly, once again, out of his prime, hadn't fought for 2 years. Broke his hand, out-jabbed Artem in the first 3 rounds. Guarantee you he outlanded him. For every 5 to 6 punches Polly landed, Artem might have landed 1. And most of his punches that he landed were very grazing and glancing. He had the one clinch, and then in the 4th and 5th round, Artem started to find success as, like I said, Polly was reluctant to throw that right hand for whatever reason, and that's where it all shut down. Now, in order for this argument to be valid, you would have to get a guy like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Earl Spence, Terrence Crawford, etc. to get in there and do the bare knuckle fighting. Then you can say, if they get dominated, The MMA guys got better stand-up. But I can tell you this, everybody knows it who watches MMA, who watches boxing. It's night and day difference. Just like Mayweather toyed with Conor McGregor, these young guys would toy with these UFC fighters if it's strictly boxing. So it's a dumb comment. I don't even think it's a real comment. I think it was more of a troll comment, and I just felt like I should touch on that because it was brought up. But at the end of the day, I guess Ben Askren has that right to say that, even though he has no hands, even though he got his face beat in, because he is an MMA fighter and he has the right to believe whatever he wants to believe if he truly believes that. But again, I think it was a troll, so I don't take it serious, because the Paulie Malignaggi, whether he won or lost, didn't really prove anything in my opinion, because Artem was never a top level guy and Paulie is so far out of his prime that it doesn't mean anything if he loses.